We're there. Well, good. I'm going to turn on my collar. I've just noticed it's like looking in the mirror. You just notice that the collar is sticking out. I'll put my hair over it. Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is a special World Storytelling live broadcast for Strawberry Fair in Cambridge, which is going on today, or would have been going on today had we been in other circumstances. So I'll probably repeat some stories I've done already, but I'm doing it as if I'm sitting in the children's area of Strawberry Fair and the children's park, and which I've been performing at for probably since 1990, and I've missed about 4. And this is only the second year it hasn't happened in all that time. So I, like loads of people, are missing this, but we will be back. And one of the wonderful things is that they ran in conjunction with 105 FM a children's writing competition. So, and that the winner was announced earlier, actually about half hour ago on 105 FM. So I can now congratulate Hartley, age 9, for this story, Bones and the Magic Chest. Once upon a time, in a land just off the coast of Scotland, there lived a retired pirate whose name was Bones. He lived on a farm with his pet skeleton parrot. He had cows and chickens, and he grew many different vegetables. One day, whilst digging a hole to make a well, he hit something hard which made a loud clang. He uncovered it and found he had discovered a big chest. Bones was a clever fellow, so he decided not to open it up at once. He went into the kitchen and was surprised to find that sitting by the stove was a leprechaun holding a stick and wearing a traffic cone on his head. The leprechaun was the first to speak. "Hello, my name is Percy. I'm a magician." That's spelled Magician. Okay? "Sure, it's fine," said Bones. "But why are you in my house?" "Well, I sent something in my magician's hat and wand," said Percy. "I sent that someone had found the precious magic gold hidden there over 400 years ago." "The what?" said Bones. Even though he was a retired pirate, he couldn't quite believe his ears. "The magic gold," Percy explained. "It's magic because you can make it do anything for other people, but not for yourself. You have to fill it every week at the end of a rainbow. To get there, you ride the rainbow rail that will come to your door." Bones heaved the huge chest onto the train the very next week when it arrived just after a shower of rain. He met the driver, who told him his name was Ralph, and his pet Cloud, which didn't seem to have a name. Ralph had rainbow skin and hair. They quickly became good friends when Bones discovered that Ralph was once a pirate too before he reformed and became a train driver. Ralph drove him to the end of the rainbow where there was a big tap that poured out gold coins, and they quickly filled the big chest. They went on a train journey after train journey, more than they needed to refill the chest. After a while, Bones became a bit bored of trying to store all the huge piles of coins that he and Ralph had collected. So one day, he and Ralph filled the train up with coins and drove to town. There was a rainbow in the road outside the hospital, so they decided they would give the coins to the people there. They explained what the coins could do. To replenish the coins, they just needed to tap them on a picture of a rainbow, and they would have plenty more. The people at the hospital were very excited. After that, every time they drove past in their rainbow train, they waved and shouted. Every time you see a rainbow, remember, there is magic everywhere. And if you see a lucky penny lying in the road, you could be picking up one of Bones' magic coins and sharing his good luck. Now, it was written by Hartley, age 9. I think most of all us writers need to just retire and just give it to the kids because that's amazing. And that was he was a winner of the Strawberry Fair children's writing competition. That's brilliant, and I think I'm going to stay with rainbows, and I'm going to tell one of my favourite stories, and one I would always tell at the fair, and I've probably been telling this for some years there. Well, probably at least 15 or 18 years at the Strawberry Fair, because children like to hear their favourite stories, and parents like to hear stories, be told stories when they're with their children that they knew when they were little. And this is The Ribbon Maiden. It's a Chinese story, but I heard it from a storyteller whose name I can't remember, back in the mists of time, at Brighton Free Festival on the Lewis Road in Brighton on the south coast of England, back in around 91, 92, I suppose. And there was a girl, and she lived in a village in the middle of the forest, in the middle of China. And she made the most beautiful ribbons you've ever seen in all of your life. And everyone from that village sewed those ribbons onto their clothes. And you know what it's like when you've got new clothes. You love to show them. But everyone in the village had the same clothes. There was no one to show them off to. So they walked through the forest. So they came to the city, and everyone in the city admired them. But in the middle of the city was a palace. And in the middle of the palace was an emperor, and he looked out of his window. How come those people down there have got better clothes than me? Servants, go and find out where they got them from. And the servants went out and found out all about the Ribbon Maiden. Well, don't just stand there. Go and fetch her. Well, off went the servants, through the palace, through the city, through the forest, till they came to the village. And there was the Ribbon Maiden, making the most beautiful ribbons you've ever seen in all your life. You girl, the emperor wants to see you. Well, I don't particularly want to see the emperor, said the Ribbon Maiden. Just carried on sewing. You can't turn down invitations from the emperor. Well, they took her. They put her on a cart. They dragged her to the forest. They dragged her to the city. They dragged her to the palace. They threw her down at the emperor's feet. You girl, you will make me the finest ribbons you've ever made in all of your life. Pardon, she said. You think you can send your servants to my village, insist I come and see you, and when I refuse, have you put on a cart, dragged through the forest, dragged through the city, dragged through the palace, thrown down the emperor's feet, and say, you girl, you will make me the finest ribbons you've ever made in all of your life. You must be joking. Now, you can't talk to emperors. Well, he took her, and he locked her in a room. You girl, you've got 7 days to sew me a live chicken. And if you can't sew me a live chicken in 7 days, it's oh, with your head. She was very worried. But she was the sort of girl that would try anything, so she tried, and she sewed, and she sewed, and she sewed, and she sewed. And after 7 days, there was the most beautiful embroidered chicken. But it was still an embroidered chicken, it wasn't alive. And she thought how lonely her body would be without a head on top of it. She cried, and a tear dropped on the chicken. She bit her thumb, and a drop of blood dropped on the chicken. Suddenly, there was a live chicken in the room. In walked the emperor. There you go. She said, live chicken? You didn't sew that, said the emperor. Someone brought that in for you. That the chicken jumped up, pecked her in the face, and jumped out the window. Right. 7 days to sew me alive. Actually, that was a bit easy. Let's get you something more complicated. Oh yeah, live peacock. I don't want any skimping. I want a big fan tail. I want an eye on the end of every feather. If not, you know exactly what happens. off the Widdie Line, or heading. Well, you know what she did. She sewed, and she sewed, and she sewed, and she sewed. And after 7 days, there was the most beautiful embroidered peacock. It was still an embroidered peacock, it wasn't a line. She thought how difficult it would be to hold up her head without a body underneath it, and she cried. A tear dropped on the peacock, and she bit her thumb, and a drop of blood dropped on the peacock. Suddenly, there was a live peacock. In walked. There you go, sir. Live peacock. You didn't sew that, said the emperor. Someone brought that in for you. With that, the peacock jumped up, pecked in the face, and flopped out the window. If you ever see a peacock trying to fly, they flop. Right. No more tricks. 7 days to sew me. What shall I have? Elephant? Care? I know. Something a little more mythical. A live dragon. No skimping. Little pointed tail on every scale. Little wings. If not, you know exactly what happens. Off with your head. Well, she was even more worried, but she thought she'd try, so she sewed. She sewed. She sewed. She sewed. And after 7 days, there was the most beautiful embroidered dragon. You know, like the ones you get in the back of silk dressing gowns. Only even better, but it was still an embroidered dragon. It wasn't alive, and she thought about her head rolling across the floor, batoing, 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 batoing. And she cried, and a tear dropped on the dragon, and she bit her thumb, and a drop of blood dropped on the dragon. Suddenly, there was a live dragon in walked the emperor, and before he had a chance to speak, the dragon breathed in, and the dragon breathed out. We all know what happens when dragons breathe out. Fire. And there was just a little pile of ashes where the emperor used to be. The dragon turned to the girl and asked her where she wanted to go. Back to my village, she said. Back home, on my back, said the dragon. And they flew out through the window, once round the palace, twice round the palace. The dragon breathed in, and the dragon breathed out. And there was just a little pile of ashes where the palace used to be, but they flew across the sky. The ribbon maiden was so happy. She was making the most beautiful ribbons of all different colours and throwing them into the air. And if you look up to the sky to this very day, if you're very lucky, you'll see a rainbow. And maybe the same rainbow as in Hartley's story. And you'll know that where the ribbon maiden was making her way home on the back of the dragon. Well, that's one of my favourite stories. And there's and poor old Shane sitting there, and he's going to hear the same stories because it's a Strawberry Fair set today. I'm doing the stories I would normally tell sitting in a tent in the open air, and I make no pretense of trying to put fresh material in because this is the beginning of the season, and quite early in the season, we would have done Chippenham Folk Festival already, and maybe a couple of others. But this the first one that I've done for decades would be today. And and the other thing that has hardly sort of reached people's attention because there's a lot going on right now. But June is Gypsy, Traveller, and Roma History Month. And and I think so. It's only right that I should do a version of Cinderella that was collected from an old Romany woman in 1950, and the girl's name in this story is Mossy Coat. And I like it because, like, it's well, in fact, in most Cinderella stories, Cinderella is less a victim, more just someone who keeps that inner strength and succeeds by the end of the story. But you will see how in this. Now, Mossy Coat lived with her mum, and that little wagon on the edge of the village, and I've been there. And Mossy Coat was actually the most beautiful girl in the village. Everyone wanted to marry her, including the local tinker, the man that went from door to door selling and mending things. And the word tinker came because tinkers used to mend, make stuff out of tin and make saucepans and cups, and they travel from place to place. And but he just worked around the area, and he was desperate to marry Mossy Coat. So every night he brought her presents. Sometimes earrings, sometimes a necklace, sometimes a bracelet. She loved the presents, but she didn't want to marry the man. So she ran up little steps of the Varda. Mom, I love the presents, but I don't want to marry the man. Don't worry about it, said. I'm making this petticoat. Now, if we've got any children listening, they might not know what a petticoat is. Before women and girls could wear trousers and wore skirts and dresses, it got a bit chilly. The wind would blow through. So they put a few layers on underneath to warm them up. And the underskirt was the petticoat. And in fact, if people wanted, the expression is for a skirt to be, or a dress to be full, which means it just stands out a bit. And I always thought that was a weird expression. It made them a little bit full. So a petticoat is an underskirt. Mossy Coat's mum said, I'm making this petticoat. When it is finished, all our troubles will be over. In the meantime, tell him you can't marry him until he brings you a dress of white satin with gold leaves on it the size of a man's hand. And it must fit perfect. Well, she ran down the little steps of the Varda. My mum says, I can't marry you till you bring me a dress of white satin with gold leaves on it the size of a man's hand, and it must fit perfectly. Well, he took a measure and up he went. A week later, he's back, and you know exactly what he had. A dress of white satin, gold leaves on the size of a man's hand, and it fitted perfectly. Mum! Don't worry, she said. I've nearly finished the petticoat. In the meantime, tell him you can't marry him until he brings you a dress of silk, the colour of the birds, the sky. And it must fit perfectly. She ran down the steps above. There he was, standing outside. Me mum says, I can't marry her till you bring me a dress of silk, the colour of the birds of the sky, and it must fit perfect. Well, off he went, and a week later he's back. You know what he had. Dress of silk, colour of the birds of the sky, and it fitted perfectly. Mum! Don't worry, she said. I've nearly finished the... In the meantime, tell him you can't marry him until he brings you a pair of silver slippers, and they must be neither too big or too small. They must fit perfect. Well, she ran down the steps again, and there he was waiting outside. There was a fire. There was a little snot on the kettle hook. There was a kettle hanging over it. He was waiting patiently. My mum says, I can't marry you till you bring me a pair of slippers, silver slippers, and they must be neither too big or too small. They must fit perfectly. Well, he looked at the 3-inch feet and off he went. And a week later he was back, and what did he have? But a pair of silver slippers, neither too big or too small. They fitted, you know it, perfect. Mom! Don't worry, she said, I've nearly finished the petticoat. In the meantime, tell him if he meets you outside the church at 10 o'clock tomorrow, that's in the morning, you'll be married. Well, Mum hadn't steered her wrong yet, but she was a bit worried now. She went down and said, Mum says, if you meet me outside the church at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll be married. He's happy, he's laughing, he's doing cartwheels down the street. Meanwhile, she's run up back on the stairs in Nevada, and there's a little turtle stove in the corner, and there's Mum sitting there. Mum, what you done to me? Don't worry, she said. I've finished the petticoat. And it wasn't any ordinary petticoat, but it was a petticoat of moss with gold thread running through it, and it would take her anywhere she wanted. And Mum, who knew a thing or two about the future, told her to put on a mossy petticoat. Over the top of it, she would put her dirtiest, grottiest working clothes. She would take her best clothes, put them in a bundle under her arm, and wish herself 100 miles away. When she got there, she was to walk till she came to a big house. She was to knock on the front door and ask for a job. Well, like all you children would do, and some of you that aren't children, she did exactly what her mother said. She put on a mossy petticoat. Over the top of it, she put her dirtiest, grottiest working clothes. She took her best clothes, put them in a bundle under her arm, and wished herself 100 miles away. When she got there, she walked till she came to a big house. She knocked on the front door and asked for a job. And what can you do? Said the mistress. I'm the best cook in the world, said Mossycoat. I've already got a cook, said the mistress. I tell you what, you can be the cook's assistant, the undercook. And she took her down and introduced her to all the other servants. Well, in those days, the best job in the kitchen was the cook's, and the second best was the undercook. No way were they going to let this little travelling girl come in off the street and take the second best job in the kitchen. So as soon as the mistress was out the way, they gave all the nasty jobs to do. Cleaning out the fireplace, cleaning the grill from the cleaning the grease from the pan. They wouldn't even let her wash. She soon had dirt from the tip of her toes to the tip of her nose. And life carried on like this for some time until news came of a great dance that was to last 3 nights. And the first night, the mistress invited Mossycoat up to her room. All the other servants thought she was going to get the sack, she was going to lose her job. When she got up there, the mistress said, Mossycoat, would you like to come to the dance for myself, the master, and our son? Mossycoat said, thank you kindly, ma'am. Look at the state of me. If I sat in your fine carriage, I'd make the seats all greasy and nasty and disgusting. And if any fine gentleman sat next to me, I'd make his silk suit all greasy and nasty. Thank you kindly, ma'am. And she went back downstairs. What did the servants want to say? What did the mistress want, said the servants? Well, actually, she invited me to the dance. Liar, they said. And they hit her on the head with skillets. Now, if you happen to be listening in America, you'll know exactly what a skillet is. But if you're listening in Britain or a few other countries, you might not know. It is, in fact, what originally they were pottery, but when I've seen them in America, they're cast iron, a cast iron frying pan. And you can imagine being hit on the head with a cast iron frying pan. Not a comfortable experience. Well, the second day, the same thing happened again. And again, she was invited up to the mistress's room. And again, she was invited to the dance. And again, she turned down the invitation. And again, she told the servants what had happened. And again, once more, they called her a liar. And they hit her on the head with skillets. Well, by this time, as you can understand, she's getting a little bit upset. So by an enchantment, by magic, she put all the servants to sleep. She went upstairs. She put on a mossy petticoat. Over the top of it, she put her dress of white satin, gold leaves on the size of a man's hand, and her silver slippers. And she wished herself a dance, and she danced all night with the mistress's son. And of course, whenever she was asked where she came from, all she'd say was she came from a place where they hit her on the head with skillets. Well, at the end of the night, she made her excuses. She went out to the corridor. She wished herself back to the big house. She woke up all the other servants. Whatever happened to us, they said. Oh, you've been asleep, she said. Oh, please don't tell the mistress, they said. And they gave her presents. Do have this pair of stockings. Do have this bar of soap. Do have next week's wages. They were kind to her for 5 minutes, but the next day, when the same thing happened again they called her a liar, and again they hit her on the head with skillets. Once more she put them to sleep. This time she went upstairs and she put on a mossy petticoat. Over the top of it, she put a dress of silk, the colour of the birds of the sky. Silver slippers, and she wished herself back, wished herself to the dance. And she danced all night with the mistress's son, and whenever she was asked where she came from, you know exactly what she said. All she said was she came from a place where they hit her on the head with skillets. Well, at the end of the dance, she tried to get away, but the son he was one of those boys that held on too tight. You know, just like an octopus, 8 arms off, but get this. And she just wished herself away from the middle of his arms. And as she disappeared, his hand must have just touched her foot, for one silver slipper fell off. Well, back at the big house, once more she woke up the servants, and once more they gave her presents. She wouldn't tell the mistress that mistress's son, he couldn't sleep. Mum, I'm in love. Mum, I've got to find her. Mum, I can't stand it. Neither can I, said Mum. And if it'll keep you quiet, we'll get all the girls of the land and we'll try the silver slipper on each of them. And they tried it on all, and it fitted none. The only one who hadn't tried it on was Mossy. And of course, as soon as she tried it on, it fitted perfectly. He's about to take her in his arms. Hold on, she said, and she went upstairs and came down her dress of white satin, gold leaves on it the size of a man's hand. He's about to take her in his arms again. Hold on, she said, and she went upstairs and came down a dress of silk, the colour of the birds of the sky. This time, he'd learned his lesson, and he asked her story. And she told him those parts she wanted him to hear, but she said nothing about being hit on the head. One thing I don't understand, he said. He said, you came from a place with a hitch on the head with skillets. She said not a word. Just looked round at all the other servants, and the master and the mistress and their son understood perfectly. And those servants were driven from the house by the dogs, and there were new servants employed. And of course, there was a great wedding, and there was masses to eat, and even more to drink. And of course, had you been there, each and every one of you would have been invited. Ben Story. Now, of course, yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Shane, that's a great prompt for the audience there. Thank you. And so, well, of course, one of the greatest traveller storytellers that I've met in my life was Duncan Williamson, and and in 2 weeks' time at the World Storytelling Cafe, we've got Amy Douglas on a Tuesday night live. Not this Tuesday, that's Dave Tong launch with his book launch, but on the Tuesday following, we've got Amy Douglas on, who's curating a lot of Duncan's material and knew him very well and was virtually an apprentice to it. And she's on talking about Duncan. But I'm going to tell one of Duncan's stories now. I did travel with him a little, and we used to poot around in my old Bedford CF and rattling around the countryside, mainly talking about scrap dealing rather than storytelling. But it's we'd roll into a transport cafe, and he'd go, "Give me a meat pie, no vegetables." He said, because he was it had in the Depression, when he was growing up, they just kept getting root vegetables out of fields, and that was all they had to put in the pot. But so by the time he got to his dotage, he was, he had the choice of not. He was a sort of opposite of a vegetarian, but his stews had a lot of vegetables. He made the most beautiful oxtail soup stews over a fire in a poikie, which is a cast iron metal pot, which is still made in Perth, but they've been made to be sent to Africa. You can't. He got one direct from the factory, which used to get and we'd be in a field with Hugh Lupton and so forth. He'd insist on making the stew, and it would simmer for hours. But this is one of his stories, and it's from one of the ancient kings of Scotland. He was a good old boy. He loved presents. Who doesn't? Bianca, you like a present. And yeah. Actually, Bianca says, can everyone send her presents? She hasn't got any reason, but she'd really like everyone to send her presents right now. So there's, yeah. You'd like some presents from Morocco as well, wouldn't you? We'll send them. We'll send we'll send some to you. And actually, I'm looking out of one lens at the moment, so so all the names are blurry. But there's so I can't read all the names. But whoever you are and wherever you are, you'd love some presents. And but he was a king, so he could declare. He declared Wednesdays is Presents Day, and every Wednesday, people would come and put presents down and give them, and they just want to keep their king happy because they loved him. And he didn't care what it was. It could be small, it could be large, it could be, it's a bit like the hat at the bottom here. We don't care how much you put in, but it is an expression. It is an expression of your appreciation to actually pop something in the hat. And so there's so the king, and again, it doesn't matter how small or large, whether it's coin or folding. And it was like that with the king. And this particular day, it had stacks. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the end of the month and everyone had just got paid. But they brought in all these beautiful presents. And he thanked them. He had this beautiful, warm feeling inside. Everybody loves me. It's a bit like us performers. What we mainly miss about performing live is that love that comes from the audience. So there's, well, I mean, we'd like to say it was about the story, but it's also about the love. And there's so he had that wonderful feeling. Everyone had gone. And it's like when you've had this poet are wrapping around and everything. And one of his servants came in and cleared that up. And he looked down and he looked just under his chair. He pulled out a box. It was a beautiful box, a little wooden box. It was covered in carved animals. And there's something about wood, the feel of wood. And so giraffes and zebras, rhinoceros. And he felt all those. He felt all those presents, all those animals, and he took a long time to open it. But he opened the box, and inside it was blue velvet, and in silver letters ran the inside. Give this box to the one you love the most. We looked at his old dog stretched out in front of the fire. And he thought, if truth be known, but if I gave you the box, when you chew it, I mean, does a dog know the difference between a beautifully carved box and a stick? I don't think so. But the most important thing is my wife, the Queen, will be really upset. So he went down that long corridor and he knocked on the Queen's door. Come in, she said. He went in. Yeah, is it Thursday? No, I just wanted to give you this present. He went up and he gave the Queen. He shuffled back up the corridor, sat in front of the fire. The Queen looked at the box, and she felt how beautiful it was, that beautiful feeling. And then she opened the lid, and the royal blue velvet, and there were the silver letters. Give this box to the one you love the most. Well, truth be known, the king, the queen fancied the captain of the guard. She couldn't say anything, obviously. Scandal, royal scandal. But she really fancied the captain of the guard. She went in and she opened the door to his office. He wasn't there. And there was his desk. He was a very tidy man. He was kind of like the opposite of me. And his desk, you know, instead of being covered in stuff, and books and papers, was neat. And there was a blotter in the middle. Now, of course, if you're young and listening to this, you won't know what a blotter is. But it was, but when we used to use pen and ink, not biro, but pen and ink, you'd unless you blotted a letter afterwards, it would, you know, the ink would all smudge when you put it in the envelope. So there was a blotter, and they were usually leather with sort of triangular sides. They're beautiful actually. You know, in this digital age, there's a few things I missed, and that's one of them. I don't miss the ink being spilt everywhere, but I do miss the blotter. And there was the blotter, and it was neat. Of course, it had a brand new sheet of blotting paper in, and there was and there's hardly anything else on the desk. Maybe a fountain pen in a holder, an inkwell. She went and she put the wooden box in the middle of the blotter. Off she went, back to her room. In came the captain of the guard. Something different. Oh, what is it? What is it? And that's right. Box. He picked up that box. And he got straight to the point. And he opened it. And there was royal blue velvet. And there were the letters. Give this box to the one you love the most. Well, the only person who meant anything to the captain of the guard was his son. His son was probably 15, 16 years old. Young man. Kind of cut off because he was the captain of the guard's son. So, you know, it was very difficult for him to have friends. And his dad had always been a bit distant, not good at talking to children, or his son or anyone else. He was used to sort of giving orders and keeping men and being in control of men, and he was very good at making them stand in straight lines on parade grounds and that sort of thing. But he called his son to him. His son is terrified. Dad has called him in the middle of the day. What have I done wrong now? He thought. And he came in, and his dad looked at him. He went, boy, present. And he gave him the box. The boy was astounded. It wasn't his birthday. It wasn't Christmas. I mean, Dad hadn't given any explanation. I mean, he was quite used to that. He took the box, he went out, he went to his room, and he felt all round those beautiful animals. The zebras, the giraffes, rhinoceros on the outside of the box. And after a long while, he opened it. Give this box to the one you love the most. It said in silver letters around the lid. Well, he was 15, 16 years old. And he'd been a bit cut off. And down in the kitchen was a young scullery maid, who was a beautiful girl. And the captain of the guard's boy had seen her, and and a lot of us as young men were in this position. You know? We'd see someone we really liked. I wish we knew them, but we didn't know how to make the first move. We didn't even know how to say hello. And he was just like that. So he took a long while, but eventually plucked up the courage He went down and crept into the kitchen. And there she was by herself in the kitchen. It's the captain of the guard's son. Someone, what am I going to do? And she just carried on washing up and scrubbing and pretending he wasn't in there, and then inspecting the knives as she polished and make sure everything was perfect. And he's going there, he's going redder and redder, and there's this huge, somewhere between fear and embarrassment. Eventually, he plucks up the courage. Without a word, he just put the box in her hand and ran out the door, red as a lobster. What the scullery maid? She looked at the box. She looked at those beautiful animals carved right the outside. She felt it. And it took her about half an hour, but eventually when everything was put away, she didn't want to hurry, she didn't want to open it with wet hands. She finished her work. She took the lid of that box and she opened it. There was a beautiful royal blue velvet inside, and there were the silver letters, "Give this box to the one you love the most." Now, the only person that had been kind to her the whole time she'd worked in the palace was the old king himself. "If the work's too much for you," he said, "come to me, tell me. If anyone's bullying you, because I know what it's like, you're young. People will take advantage. Just come and tell me." So she took that box, she walked down the long corridor, up from the servants' quarters, down another long corridor, to the big door, to the king's room. She knocked on it. "Come in," she said. "Oh, my dear. Has someone been bullying you? Is the work too much? What can I do for you?" And she went up, she had the box in her hand. She said, "No, everything is fine, but I just wanted to give you this present." He gave the old king the box. He thanked her kindly, and she left. And after she'd left, he looked at his old dog stretched out across the fire and thought, "I might as well have given it to you in the first place." I love Duncan's stories. I could listen when we weren't talking scrap. It'd sing, and I'm not going to try and sing any of his songs. And he was a great poet as well. And we'll hear more about all that in Tuesday week. But that was just a little one of his stories. And I've told that in Mossy Coat because to this month, June, because of everything that's going on, it's been lost a bit in the news, but it is Gypsy Traveller and Roma History Month, and there's some great stuff going on, but we'll probably have to dig it out a bit, and also think about the people on site that they're having some real difficulties at the moment, and on unregistered sites where where they're having trouble getting water and. I mean, that happens all over the world. I was listening to a guy from Noho Nation. They're having difficulty getting water. And there's all sorts of people. We say wash our hands, but it's there are people in difficulty. We need to look out for them. How's my time? Actually, it is about that time. So I've got to thank you all for listening. How are we? Are we happy? In fact, so thank you very much for listening. You have been marvelous. And maybe there's more people listening than are in the room. That would be fantastic. But have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was lovely, John.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
You're doing another storytelling a bit later, aren't you?
Well, yes. I you know, if it's ethically, I'm doing a Facebook Live. It's because it's Strawberry Fair, and then I'm doing Facebook Live, and then I'm on. For some reason, I'm in the Cambridge team tonight for the
nice one.
because you know, I could be anywhere on the East Anglian team, but there's for the East Anglian Storytelling Festival, but there's you know, who, as I said earlier, you know, have managed to put it on the same, administered from Cambridge on the same day as Strawberry Fair. Good move.
Yeah.
But there's but never mind. But we have got some lovely stuff coming up in the World Storytelling Cafe tonight. Tonight is Norman Perrin from Canada live, and no, what is it, Saturday? No, it's not tonight, is it? It's Giles Abbott tonight. Giles, it's not, you know, that's what comes of working without my prompt. You know, if I was in a television studio, I'd have a prompt in front of me. It's Giles Abbott, and they're doing these Viking stories, and you'll have the illustrator James illustrating with it. And tomorrow night live is Norman Perrin from Canada. And I put entirely the wrong stuff up on my Facebook post and everything else. I really should do a brain transplant and get a new. Well, hopefully I'll have a new pair of glasses soon. Anyway, and of course on Monday magazine program on Monday night we're exploring song, story and song. So we've got both people singing ballads and then more contemporary stuff, and we're looking at the relation between story and song, and in connecting the world by stories. And then on Tuesday, like I said, we've got Dave Tong launching his medieval tale, and I think I've got it right this time. Thank you for the prompt, Lucy.
That's a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's from Mike, actually. He's driving at the moment, so.
Yeah. Well, as well. Thank you, Lucy, and apologies to Mike.
That's all right. I really enjoyed the stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, John.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks, John. Bye-bye, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.